been a heck of a time finding ways to keep busy without basketball. I've begun working for charity. I donated my body to science, reconnected with long lost members of my family, found love and discovered eternal happiness. But now that basketball is back, I can finally get back to complaining about referees and load management. And honestly, what a comeback it's been. It's been just 4 days of basketball. We've had a Damian Lillard 71-point game against the Rockets, though, so does it really count? A Trae Young game winner, a Clippers Kings second highest scoring game in NBA history, 351 points scored in a double overtime game, the Jason Tatum game-winning three almost matched by the Joel Embiid full court heave that wasn't, and Ben Simmons sits out multiple games with knee soreness. It's really been an electric couple of days. So let's jump into these power rankings, starting with the tier of the Rockets. Fire Stephen Silas. And I've just never seen a team go so quickly from, all right, we're going to run our offense to, oh God, what do we do? Somebody bail us out so quickly in this league. By the 20-second mark left on the shot clock, they're already screwed and they say, we need a miracle. I don't know what they're doing with this team. Stop benching Alperen Şengün for his defensive liabilities. Your team has 13 wins on the season, all right? Like, I understand he's a liability on the defensive end every single possession, but you just got to deal with it because he's a special talent. The Denver Nuggets are the second seed with Nikola Jokic, and he has about the same defensive abilities as Alperen Şengün. So just, God, play your best players and put them in positions to succeed. Stop doing what Stephen Silas does. It's disgusting. And we're moving up a tier, and this is the tier of the regular tanking teams. The Rockets are just in a league of their own, which is a really pathetic, sad league that nobody wants to watch. Starting with the San Antonio Spurs, and I gotta say, I just continue to love everything that they're doing about their development track. They're losing games, but they're losing competitively, and that's how you want to complete the tank. They're bringing along young guys. Malachi Branham's look good. Jeremy Sohan, I think I've ranted and raved about enough at this point. He's just been exceptional in the effort department. Skill still pending. He's going to need a couple years to fully develop and turn into a superstar if he has that potential within him. But the rest of the team just looks good. Greg Popovich, don't know how long he's going to be sticking around for, but I love what the Spurs are doing. Next up is the Pistons. And I'm going to say, as a completely biased fanboy, that James Wiseman has looked pretty solid as a Piston. He hasn't really had much opportunity, and trust is building with his teammates, but his defense is solid. His offensive rebounding has been okay. Effort comes and it goes. It's going to be especially tough for him right now, not getting a single play called for him. He just has to figure out how to affect the game throughout the flow of the game instead of actually getting touches and getting possessions and operating out of the post and be a volume guy like he was in Memphis. That made him go with that number 2 overall pick. But look, man, I think he could find a path forward in Detroit pending coaching. They're doing a pretty solid job at developing. Jaden Ivey's looked really good. They brought along guys like Isaiah Stewart and Sadiq Bey, who probably are a little bit better than you really expected them to be when they were drafted, when you saw that Isaiah Stewart was 6'7" and Sadiq Bey is just an offensive weapon, and that's it. No, not much on the defensive end. So I'm hoping and I'm praying, because I'm a huge James Wiseman fan, that he's going to be succeeding. And here at the 27th spot is the Charlotte Hornets, who are on a win streak. The Charlotte Hornets are on a win streak after an entire year of disappointing basketball where they're trying to compete and they're still losing with these teams that are literally trying to lose. They finally decided to go on a win streak, and they might be playing their way out of the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. So how it works in the NBA lotteries, you need to stay in the bottom 4 to maintain your odds. Now, I don't think it's going to happen, but I have legitimate concerns that they might play their way into like the number 7 pick or something stupid instead of holding 10% plus odds of having a top 3, top 2 pick, because this draft, it goes Victor Wembanyama 1, Scoot Henderson 2, and then the rest. You really want to take a flyer on the crazy man known as Brandon Miller, who's making fun of a dead girl. The other guys are just huge projects like Gigi Jackson and Amen Thompson. So you either go pick 1, pick 2, or you just say, let's try again next season. We'll see how the Hornets do. And then there's going to be a tier up of not your average tank. These two teams are just playing really solid basketball. They're not quite in that we're going to make a playoff spot tier just yet. They might make a late push at the end of the season, but I think they're going to have a top probably 8 pick, starting with the Orlando Magic, 25-36, and they're good, man. They're starting to get healthy. Jonathan Isaac's come back, and man, his defensive tenacity is still there. Markelle Fultz is good. They just don't have enough to win games yet. They need, honestly, a year or two to develop their guys. Franz Wagner's look great. Paolo Banchero, everybody knows about, and the rest of the team comes and it goes. You know, Bol is polarizing. Jalen Suggs still coming along. Cole Anthony. They need a couple more pieces and a couple more drafts, and then we'll see what this Magic squad can really turn into. Next up is the Indiana Pacers, 27-35. They're currently 25th in the power rankings. And now that Tyrese Halliburton is back and healthy again, I'm kind of worried that they're going to go on a late playoff push, make the play-in tournament, and work their way out of a possible top 5 draft pick. The night and day difference of when this team is playing with Tyrese Halliburton versus when they're not is stark. I think it's time to call him a bona fide superstar, even though statistically he's like a really good player, not quite in that upper echelon, but his impact on the team when he plays, they're a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, and when he's out, they're a bottom 3 team, and they're just so close to being one player away. You switch out like Aaron Nesmith or Andrew Nembhard with a guy like Victor Wembanyama or Brandon Miller, or they go out and get like a Jaylen Brown. This roster is monstrous. Point guard Tyrese Haliburton, shooting guard even Buddy Hield you can upgrade upon, small forward Ben Mathurin, power forward somebody to replace these guys, and then a center Miles Turner who's capable of scoring 40 points a night, being a stretch 5 defensive stalwart. Man, this is a legit championship rotation. They just feel like they're one piece away. And then finally getting into the WTF is the NBA tier. So many teams here hovering around 500. Are they competitive? Aren't they competitive? Are they going to make the playoffs or aren't they? Starting with the Bulls, and you'll notice there's been no movement up to this point. We kind of know what the teams are at 60 games into the NBA season, and the Bulls are just a disappointing franchise, a disappointing team, and a disappointing season. They're going to beat some teams, they're going to lose to some teams, and they're going to lose more than they win. DeMar DeRozan, still a mid-range bucket. Zach LaVine's starting to get his footing. He's starting to get healthy. He takes way too many step-back, ridiculous threes. I know it looks fun when it goes in, but man, I just wish he was more efficient. Vooch is having a great year, but the rest of the team is just kind of ass. No offense. You know, Patrick Williams has played a little better. Alex Caruso, everybody loves, but they just, man, they need Lonzo Ball. Let's be completely honest, and he is gone. They didn't get a lot of help at the trade deadline, so let's hope Patrick Beverley turns it around for them. Next up is the Washington Wizards, falling down a spot. Unfortunately, Kyle Kuzma, Kristaps Porzingis, and Bradley Beal isn't a big 3. Thankfully, the front office doesn't care about winning basketball. Maybe they'll make the 10 seed this year. Next up is the Portland Trailblazers, and I know we all underappreciate Dame time, but man, that was like the quietest 71-point game I've ever seen or heard about, because I didn't see or hear about it. Now, it was against the G League Rockets, so it doesn't really count. The Rockets aren't really an NBA team, but they're so bad that if you don't score 70 against them, it's a disappointing game. But the Blazers are still hanging in. They may make a playoff push if they can continue to stay healthy. I think Nurkic is going to be coming back soon. Still got Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, and of course Dame time. We'll see. I don't know. Can Shaedon Sharpe take a midseason step up and be some help off the bench? They got rid of Gary Payton, who's honestly playing pretty good for them. They got rid of Josh Hart, who's okay, and Cam Reddish has been, he's been Cam Reddish. Next up is the Pelicans, falling down, and who is Zion Williamson? They're just such a bad team without Zion. Their rotations aren't great. Herb Jones has regressed. His shot has fallen off, and his confidence is completely gone. They're struggling a bit with injuries in themselves, as always. Dyson Daniels, I think, is still out. He may be coming back soon. Larry Nance just went out with injury. Jonas Valanciunas is getting exposed on the defensive end, and of course, they don't have Zion Williamson, who is really the linchpin to this team's success. When he's in, they were the best team in the Western Conference, and when he's out, they might be the worst team. Next up is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they're falling down 5 spots as well because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all-star MVP caliber player, is out for his annual "is this team tanking" stretch of the regular season. Is he going to sit the next 20 games while they try and get a better draft pick? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I thought they were going to make a playoff push. I don't really know. They say it's an abdominal strain. Not sure how long he's going to be out for. But look, it's as simple as this. When Shai is playing, they're a playoff team, and when he's not, they're a lottery team. And coming up is the Toronto Raptors, jumping up 4 spots. Now, I still personally dislike everything about the Jakob Poeltl trade as far as implications for winning a championship this year, losing their top 6 protected pick next year. What happens if you give up like the number 7 overall pick for Jakob Poeltl? You're going to feel pretty dumb. But they've looked very good since the trade. Jakob has been key for them. He's a really underappreciated center, does a lot of things well. And the next few games are going to be really key for this Raptors squad if they're going to make a playoff push. They have 1 game against the Bulls, 2 games against the Wizards. I'm not sure if they have Fred VanVleet. He's out for personal reasons, I think because he's a newborn dad, something. Anyway, they are going to need to win these games. They're 30-32 right now, fighting for the 10 seed, and they might be able to jump up to the 6 seed because this NBA season has been nuts. Now, OG Anunoby, coming back from injury, he needs to play a little bit better. Gary Trent Jr. needs to get back to being good Gary Trent Jr. instead of bad Gary Trent Jr. because the rest of their offense is not great. So going to be a pivotal week for the Toronto Raptors. Next up is the Warriors, and they're jumping up 3 spots because they've won against the Timberwolves. They're over 500. I'm not really sure what to do with this team. Sometimes they win. They look great. You go, this is Warriors basketball. A lot of times they lose and you go, Jesus Christ, why is Anthony Lamb playing? Hopefully Steph Curry can come back by playoff time and see if they can go on a little bit of a push. Otherwise, geez, I don't know. 17th is the Brooklyn Nets, and I'm just not sure what to do with this team. Theoretically, they can go either direction, or they can just stay put somewhere middle of the pack. Their troops can galvanize, like the Jazz have been doing. They have Spencer Dinwiddie at the point guard, Cam Thomas, who's a bucket. Mikal Bridges is a decent shot creator. Cam Johnson, a solid power forward. Nick Claxton can anchor the defense. And then they have bench guys that can give you valuable minutes like Seth Curry and Royce O'Neal get you a bucket. Or they could just fall apart like that awful Bulls game where they scored 29 points and a half and continue to fall until they're a below 500 team by the end of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see this Nets squad. They're young. They're fun. They don't have players that you hate anymore. And I hope that they show this grit and grind sort of culture and they win a couple games and maybe they go on a little bit of a push into the playoffs. Not ideal if you're talking about seeding, but remember, they don't have their draft picks, so does it really matter? Next up is the Atlanta Hawks, 31-30, and I'm a big fan of the Quinn Snyder hiring. I was a big fan of his when he was in Utah. I think he worked wonders for the roster while they were stuck with Rudy Gobert and a bunch of horrible defenders like Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles, Mike Conley. There was just not a lot of point of attack defense, and the entire idea was to funnel their players into Rudy Gobert and have him block them at the rim. But of course, then you have Rudy Gobert on the offensive end. So I place more of the Jazz, not failures, but disappointing playoff exits on the roster, not so much the head coach. I think he's going to be great for Trae Young and DeJounte Murray and the Hawks. They do need a couple guys to step up when they go on this playoff push. At the end of the day, John Collins used to be a 20-point per game, 40% athletic stretch four. Now he's completely regressed because he's got zero confidence whatsoever. DeAndre Hunter, before the injuries, was like a bona fide defender, a two-way forward who could knock down open threes and defend the other team's best player. He needs to step up as well. DeJounte Murray and Trae Young should be good enough, I hope, at the guard position to compete in the playoffs, and Clint Capella is a lockdown defender. So theoretically, this roster has what it takes to go on a push, and now Quinn Snyder as the head coach is probably leagues better than Nate McMillan. We'll see how it plays out. I don't know how quickly the switch is going to flip, but I think things are looking bright for the Atlanta Hawks. Next up is the Utah Jazz, and did you know that Chris Dunn is still an NBA player? God, I completely forgot about him, and honestly, Will Hardy deserves Coach of the Year over anybody this season. The fact that this team still isn't a bottom 5 team is remarkable. In fact, they're a 500 team because they play 500 ball. God damn it. They're salt of the earth, punch the clock, even win-loss ratio basketball. Lose a couple games, guess what? They're going to win a couple games too, but don't get too excited. Don't let it go to your head. No long winning streaks here. No, sir. That's hubris, which this blue-collar, hardworking, everyman team doesn't deserve. A few wins in a row, these guys, true to form, will bounce it out with a couple losses. Yes, sir. That's the 2023 Jazz, a good, honest 500 basketball team. And at the 14th spot is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, I think Karl Anthony Towns is gone for the season. He's just been out with that, I think, calf injury. It's worse than they thought when it first happened. They was like, oh, it's going to be out a month or two, then he'll come back. And now he's kind of Lonzo balling it. B, they continue to collapse in the fourth quarter in close games, partly because they don't have Karl Anthony Towns, an all-NBA caliber center, third best center in the game when last seen healthy, now playing power forward. And they sacrificed their entire depth. They could really use a Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley, who's having a career season right now on their team, to give them a little bit of depth. At some point, they were starting to look really good, got over 500. They were starting to compete with teams like the Kings, like the Knicks, but they're starting to fall back down to, this 500 tier. What the fuck is the NBA? And the Timberwolves are they're disappointing at this point, man. Here at 13 is the Los Angeles Lakers, and I know their record is only 29-32, but man, I'm just bumping them up. They have looked good. They just continue to play good basketball with this rotation. I mean, every trade besides dumping Thomas Bryant for a second, I think was incredible for this win now team. They got Rui Hachimura, who's going to come and go in his games. They got Jared Vanderbilt, who is just an energy bunny. He is going to play his tail off. Anthony Davis is healthy, quote unquote. LeBron James is playing okay. He has a little bit of a right foot, but I think he's going to be fine. He's just an Iron Man still at age 49. Malik Beasley, bucket. Dennis Schroeder is taking all the reps from Russell Westbrook, who just did not fit with this team. I mean, they are playing good basketball. Credit Darvin Ham. Credit Rob Pelinka. I don't know what he did to turn himself into the best GM in the NBA mid-season, but he's doing it, and the Lakers are playing good basketball. They're going to be scary come playoff time. And next up is the Heat, who are not scary come playoff time. 32-29. Yes, they have a good record, but they're back on one of their losing streaks, and they lost to the Hornets. I mean, they lose to the Bucks, you go, okay. Lose to the Nets, that's not what you want to see. Lose to the Nuggets, you go, okay. But you lost to the Hornets. That's your fourth straight loss, And you didn't do anything to get better at the trade deadline. You still have this rotation that is flawed. Jimmy Butler, he's clutch. He's going to be a bucket, going to get to the free throw line, going to be a great leader for this team, but he's just not good enough to carry a franchise. You're losing another year of what's left of his prime at age, 34? Bam. I love what he does for the team. Undersized, can't shoot. Kyle Lowry is washed, and you feel awful that you bet the farm that he was going to be the guy that put this team over the top. Still have Caleb Martin being a starting forward, which I respect him as a player. He tries hard, plays good defense, but he's not the answer when there's a Kevin Durant floating around. And you got Tyler Hero who's going to do everything he can to be a bucket, but the other scorers on the team are Duncan Robinson and Max Strus and Gabe Vincent. That's just not good enough. So unfortunate, really tough stretch, and really tough end of the season for the Miami Heat. All things being equal, I think it's done. I think Heat Nation needs to go in a different direction come this offseason. And I do have the Heat still at the 12 spot, but they are going to be taking a tier down. I put them in the good, not great tier, and at this point, they're just not even that anymore. They're more in this, where they're going to end up come the end of the season tier. They still have the capacity to go on a run, play tough basketball. Heat culture is always going to be tough and taking over games on the defensive end, but I don't think they're good enough to compete with the rest of these teams. Starting with the Dallas Mavericks, who are going to fall down 2 spots. This pairing has taken longer to gel than we expected. Each guy's just really struggling to determine when to assert themselves, when to step back. Luka Doncic already doesn't do anything off ball, so when he passes Kyrie the ball, he just stands around and says, all right, everybody else go play. Jason Kidd still is a terrible coach, and Christian Wood is going to basically quit on this team because they've quit on him the entire season, which is disappointing because he's the 3rd best player on the team. His defense comes and goes, and his offense isn't always consistent, but man, they need to give him some respect. They need to empower him, and that's all about coaching. You empower your players to be the best versions of themselves. Instead, Jason Kidd is saying things like, I'm basically just like a fan watching these guys play. They're just so blah, blah, blah. I step back, and he's the worst coach in the NBA. Besides Stephen Silas, get Jason Kidd off the freaking Mavericks. I'm sick of him wasting Luka Doncic and now Kyrie Irving years of great basketball that we could be watching if they had a head coach. Anyway, next up is the Clippers. Not going to be moving. They've been on the losing side of a couple of incredible games. The only notes I have from them scoring 351 points versus the Kings and then losing in overtime to the Nuggets is Marcus Morris needs to go because this man cannot guard a stop sign. I still need to see some more time to see how Eric Gordon and Russell Westbrook and Bones Highland and Mason Plumlee will fit with this team. They all have value in specific circumstances. Kawhi Leonard looks to be back. Paul George will be coming back. And Ty Lue, I still respect him. I just don't know what to do with this Clipper squad. They're head scratching, they're frustrating, and they have the capacity to be the best team in the NBA, and they have the capacity to be the worst team in the NBA, just like every freaking team this year. Number 9 is the Knicks, playing good basketball, jumping up 2 spots. Jalen Brunson playing great. Julius Randle was kind of returning to that All-NBA form that we saw a couple years ago, balling out. RJ Barrett's been playing pretty good basketball, and Mitchell Robinson is back. He's healthy. He's anchoring this defense, and the New York Knicks squad is going to be fun come playoff time. And at number 8 is the Kings. Now, I'm still refusing to put them up a tier higher than this. I know they have the best analytics offense in the NBA. They have the highest rating, whatever. At the end of the day, I don't think this team is good enough to legitimately compete for a championship. They're going to stay competitive. I think they're going to be a first-round exit, maybe a second-round exit, which is pretty good, all things being considered. From the start of the season, you said, okay, these were the Sacramento Kings. They're going to do Sacramento Kings things, and they haven't. They've played good wire to wire, but I still don't believe in the top-end talent of this team. I love what they're doing. I just don't think that they're going to be championship contenders. That's why I've got them on the outside looking in of these flawed contenders tier, starting with the Suns. Just waiting for Kevin Durant to come back. And even though KD isn't here, they're still playing with extreme confidence. Guys like Ish Wainwright and Cam Payne are just balling out. They're not winning all their games, but look, you're waiting for Kevin Durant to come back. Let's just say you go 500 until he comes back. That's going to be good enough because KD is more than capable of putting your team way over the top, replacing a guy like Mikal Bridges, replacing a guy like Cam Johnson. I just can't wait, man. I'm so excited to see how Devin Booker and Cliff Paul and DeAndre Ayton and a healthy Kevin Durant play together. Next up is the Grizzlies. No movement. They win some, they lose some, they beat the Nuggets, and then they play embarrassingly. I still think they're a piece away. And above them is the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that I've been believing in. They lose some winnable games. That's a little frustrating. Donovan Mitchell is inconsistent. He'll score 71 and then score 12. and it doesn't, you don't really know when it's going to happen. They're starting to get healthy. They're starting to play together. I don't think anybody's going to take that step that I was hoping for come playoff time. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, who is playing a little bit better, but I think there's still going to be a second round exit to a team like the 76ers, dude, to a team like the Bucks, and of course the Celtics there at the best team in the NBA. And of course, we have the Philadelphia 76ers on the outside looking in of these top teams. I think they're maybe a few wins away, going on a little bit more of a run. Still need to see a little bit more film of Joel Embiid giving a shit. James Harden playing well. Tyrese Maxey, their bench needs to come together and give him a little more effort. Tobias Harris, hopefully he can step up come playoff time when it matters most. But I think they have the capacity to be the best team in the NBA. Remember, at the beginning of the season, they were my favorite to win the whole damn thing. Joel Embiid as the MVP of the regular season. So they have the capacity to do it. Let's hope they put together a couple more wins. And then I have a tier of unstoppable forces here at the top three. Finally, the Celtics aren't alone because honestly, they're not playing better than everybody else. They still are the best team in the NBA, but the Bucks gonna get a tier up. It doesn't matter who's out. Giannis out, they're gonna win. Chris Middleton out, they're gonna win. Drew Holiday, well, when he goes out, they lose because he's really been the linchpin for the team. But Drew Holiday is having an incredible season. Once again, my defensive player of the year just for his point of attack defense. The dude is ridiculous. He'll guard 1 through 5. In the clutch, doesn't matter who they're playing. He's going to guard their center, their point guard, and he's going to be disruptive. He'll go 3 of 24 from the field and then get you a game-winning bucket. And he's been balling out, man. He's just been scoring in bunches. And of course, the Nuggets still here at number 2. I don't love Mike Malone rotations. He leaves his bench out way too often for my taste, has some frustrating rotations, and I know he's working with a flawed team every single night with Nikola Jokic's non-defense and Michael Porter Jr. playing 50% of his games, but they're still playing really good basketball. They're winning a lot of games. 43-17 is nothing to sniff at, and Nikola Jokic is just an unstoppable force, man. When he is on the court, your offense is ridiculous, and it doesn't matter who he plays with. KCP, Reggie Jackson, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon. He's going to make everybody offensively better, and hopefully it's good enough, more than capable of compensating for his lack of defense. And of course, number 1 overall is the Boston Celtics, still continuing to play good basketball. Had that game winner against the 76ers that wasn't a full court heave by Joel Embiid on the other side. I think it's almost become mundane at this point how good the Celtics are with respect to the rest of the NBA. They're just a great roster, top to bottom. Joe Mazzulla's had a heck of a year. They're starting to win those games that they normally lose in clutch time. Now the performances aren't great, and it's always you're biting the fingernails on your hands because you don't know if they're going to win, but somehow they still win games with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown getting you clutch buckets. And of course, you can't forget about Big Al Horford. That's going to do it for the weekly power rankings. Let me know what your thoughts are, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I'll catch you in the next one.